I slid the letter across his desk at 2:15 on a Thursday. Bradley leaned back in his chair and laughed. An actual laugh, head tilted like I told him a decent joke. His suit cost more than my first car. Tom Ford, he'd mentioned once, unprompted. His office had a whiteboard with the word synergy circled twice from a meeting 3 weeks ago that nobody had erased. 2 weeks, he said. Don't bother. Pack your desk today. We'll survive. I already had my briefcase in my left hand. I'd packed it that morning. Sounds good, I said. He was already looking back at his monitor before I reached the door. He didn't watch me leave. That was the last free decision he made without me in the room. I walked out. 7 years. I want you to understand what 7 years means in a warehouse operation this size. When I got hired, the company ran 4 regional distribution centers on software held together with duct tape and prayer. Orders got lost, trucks left half empty, 2 systems that were supposed to talk to each other spoke different languages, and somebody's cousin had written the translator in 2009. I rebuilt all of it, quietly. The routing engine, the inventory sync, the core integration layer that told every conveyor, every scanner, every forklift terminal what to do and when. 41 warehouses by year 7, all running on architecture I designed at my kitchen table. Nobody noticed. That's the job. When infrastructure works, it's invisible. You only get famous when it breaks. Then Bradley arrived. 34, fresh MBA, hired to drive operational efficiency. He talked in verbs that used to be nouns. He'd solution a problem. He'd architect a strategy. My job title, used as a word he didn't understand. He scheduled a meeting to have me walk him through the systems. He spent it on his phone. At the end, he said, "So basically it just runs itself." I said, "Something like that." I let him keep believing it. Q3 review. Conference room, glass walls, the small table. 6 months earlier, my old director had promised me a promotion in writing, principal architect, a raise, a real title, email, time-stamped, signed off. He retired in the spring. Bradley inherited the file. I had also just finished my biggest project yet, a predictive routing optimization that cut fuel and labor costs across the network by 20%. I'd shown Bradley the results in April. In May, he presented them to the board. I watched the recording later. He said, "I built a model." He said, "my initiative." He used the word "I" 14 times, describing work he could not have written a single line of. So in the review, I brought up the promotion. Calmly, I put the old email on the table. Bradley slid it back without reading it. He said, "That was the old regime. Things are different now." Then he smiled. "Look, you're good at what you do. But let's be honest, you're a replaceable code monkey. Talented, sure. Replaceable. If you're unhappy, the door's right there." The architect of the building being told by a tenant that the walls meant nothing. I said, "Understood." I went back to my desk, and I read my own employment file, the one HR kept, the one Bradley never opened. Here's what Bradley didn't know. The core integration script, the only thing every warehouse depended on, wasn't the company's software. It was mine. I wrote the original engine before I got hired, on my own hardware, my own time. When I came on, I didn't sell it to them. I licensed it. Rolling 12-month term, auto-renewing, tied to my active employment and a signed license agreement in my file. The clause was simple. Employment ends, license enters a 30-day cure window, then terminates. On termination, the software is to be removed from production. Standard language, boring language, the kind MBA skim. So when Bradley told me to pack, I packed. My mechanical keyboard, the good one, Brown's, I'd tuned it myself. My mug, a framed photo. I logged onto the license server one last time and set my renewal flag to do not renew, effective on my departure date. Perfectly legal, documented, time-stamped. Then I went home. I want to describe the 4 days because the 4 days were the best part. I slept in. I drank coffee from beans I actually liked. I played through a game I'd been ignoring for a year. I mowed the lawn. My wife asked if I was worried about work. I told her I didn't work there anymore. I didn't call anyone. I didn't warn anyone. You don't warn a system about its own expiration date, you just let the clock run. The license had a grace buffer built into the deployment, cached credentials. It would keep running for exactly 96 hours after termination before the validation check failed and the engine stopped accepting commands. I knew the number to the minute. I made a second pot of coffee. Day 4, 9:15 a.m. My phone rang. Not Bradley, the CEO, a man who had said maybe 12 words to me in 7 years. His voice was flat, in the way powerful people go flat when they're scared. "Everything stopped," he said. 41 sites. Nothing's moving. Scanners are dead. The floor's frozen. IT says there's a license error with your name on it. I said, "That sounds right." I explained it to him the way you explain a thing to someone who should have known it already. The engine, the license, the termination clause his own legal team approved. I was calm. I'd been calm for 4 days. "What do you need?" he said. Not a question. A 1-year license renewal, emergency consulting engagement to redeploy and certify, $250,000, wired up front, new agreement, my terms this time. Silence. Then, "That's extortion." I said, "It's a renewal quote. You're free to rebuild the engine yourself. I'd estimate 18 months. Your trucks aren't moving during any of them." He didn't take 18 months to decide. He took about 9 seconds. The wire cleared at 1:40 p.m. I watched the number land in my account. Then I opened my laptop, signed the new license, and pushed one button. The validation server accepted the key. 41 warehouses came back online inside of 2 minutes. Bradley was escorted out of the building by 4 p.m. that same afternoon. I heard it from a friend still on the floor. 2 security guards, a cardboard box, his Tom Ford jacket over one arm. The board had a very specific question for him. Why the company's entire operation was running on software owned by a man he personally drove out the door. He didn't have a buzzword for that. People think leverage is about titles, corner offices, who reports to whom. It isn't. Leverage is knowing exactly which wire, if you pull it, brings the whole thing down, and being the only person in the building who knows it's there. Bradley called me a replaceable code monkey. The invoice said otherwise.